Welcome to the Reinventing the White Coat podcast, where we delve into conversations aimed at helping you foster a healthy relationship with your career and yourself. If you're a physician feeling unfulfilled or burned out or want to prevent yourself from going down that path, then this podcast is for you. I'm your host, Jennifer Shaer, pediatrician, chief wellness officer, and executive and life coach. Sit back and relax as we explore ways to live your best life and have a career in medicine. Today I'm here with Dr. Dr Levene, who is a pediatrician with Allied Physicians Group. Eric is also the chair of our marketing committee and most recently helped us get ready and supported us through our massive EHR upgrade, which is still ongoing. So Eric, thank you so much for joining me today.
My pleasure.
All right. So originally, when this podcast originally launched, of course you listened because you're such a good friend, and you gave me the feedback that you enjoyed it, but you wanted to hear a little bit more about doctors who sort of stayed put, right? Who were doing well where they were. And I thought about it. I said, that's a great point. It's sort of like Seinfeld, a show about nothing. It's not quite as exciting, but that is great. And who better, I thought, than you, because you're doing just that. So I thought you could start by telling us a little bit about, quickly how you got to the point that you're at, and then we'll talk about what you're doing in your current place.
Well, I'm currently a pediatrician in White Plains, New York, and this was my first job out of residency.
Wow.
Yeah, I trained at Schneider Children's, which is now Cohen's, and then I did a chief residency year, and I took a job in White Plains, and I got lucky. I work with some great people. I went to an established practice. Our current practice has been in White Plains for 70 years. Yeah, and my current senior partner has been there 38 years. So, and I got lucky, I said. I work with people I respect. I work with people who respect me. And we just work together. We practice medicine in the same way. Our brains work in the same way. So, why leave a place you're happy?
Yeah. Okay. Well, so then why, though, you had this beautiful private practice? At what point, why did you decide to move that practice into the larger, group without walls that we call Allied?
Well, like most of us, we saw writing on the wall. We saw our reimbursements go down. There was no way to negotiate with all the insurance companies. You saw medicine change from people paying you to dealing with insurance companies and such. And then we actually were against the grain in Westchester County. We did our research, we spoke to lawyers, we went to meetings, and found Allied. The majority of our contemporaries in our area went to other groups, which were then bought by other groups. Mm-hmm. And again, we got lucky. We made a really good decision. And Allied allows us to practice medicine how we want to, of course, within maintaining all the standards.
Right. So, it's interesting because as I talk to so many different people, and you do too, we have so many colleagues, everyone has such different interests, right? And so frequently people, they do the same thing for a long time. They feel stagnant, they want change, they need something new. Do you get that feeling, or are you able to sort of reinvent yourself in a sense where you're at?
I think I have done that so many multiple times. As things develop, I started helping to run the practice, look at the money, all these other issues. And as we joined Allied and social media became the way that people would find physicians, I started the Chester Pediatrics Facebook page. And our CEO, Carrie Firestein, saw that I was doing it. And she goes, would you like to do the Allied Facebook page? And I remember the conversation. It was at a partners meeting. I remember this conversation. And that's how I got sucked in to marketing. And actually, it was great. It allows me to learn an enormous amount of stuff. I again got lucky. I work with an amazing team of people in the marketing department at Allied who not only help but teach me, and I learn. So that was great. So I've done a lot of that, and then transitioned to pandemic, and I learned all about webinars and creating webinars, doing webinars, finding people for webinars. And so I was able to do a lot of that. And I think joining Allied, where the physicians are so involved and not just creating RVUs, so to speak, you could explore all your interests or or not know you have an interest.
Yeah. So you are, you look the same on the outside to your patients, but you're changing a bit and growing on the inside.
Yes and no. And it's quite interesting that patients say, oh, I saw your webinar, or I saw your YouTube, or I have 12-year-olds who came, I found you on TikTok. And it's really fun. Is you sort of bonding with your patients.
The oldest guy on TikTok, right?
No, I am not the oldest guy on TikTok.
Oh God.
Close, but I'm not.
So listen, I want to expose a little something here. You're talking about how what an amazing group of people that you work with and how terrific it is. But I do want to point out, in my role at the company, I originally was CMO, and now I'm the chief wellness officer instead of the chief medical officer. But when I was the chief medical officer, I was called, it was probably like 8 or 9 years ago at this point, but I was called to your office, which was a complete disaster. The culture was not good. And then fast forward to just this past year in 2023, as the chief wellness officer, I did an in-depth look at all of the different offices or divisions to see who has the highest retention rate, who has the best culture, who is really engaged. And your office went from the very bottom to the very top. So how did you do that?
I think it was more of, we were in a transition period. We had an office manager who was part-time, not there a lot. We had a lot of old staff. Nobody was really, the inmates were running the prison. It was the way it was. And we sort of were just putting out fires. And so Allied, we have teams of people who came in, said, all right, these are the issues. We then went looking for a new office manager. And I'm going to tell you, there were a couple of disasters in there. And we, paid a service to look for an office manager. And I think no matter what the doctors or providers at the office, we're good at what we do, but most of us are not businessmen or know how to run a bigger practice. That's nothing we were trained to do, especially at my time. And we got a great office manager who came in, observed, straightened out, moved people into different roles, eased people out gently who were not performing or who were toxic.
Yeah.
And, through that time, we've had great employees, we've had toxic employees, but when you have an office manager who can filter, for lack of a better term,
Hmm.
um, it's enormously helpful. Um, I actually remember HR uh, telling my current office manager when they hired her, or we all hired her, sort of a group experience here at
Hmm.
Allied, um, that, well, Dr. Levene's not going to give up much control.
Hmm.
Within 48 hours, I gave up everything except one or two things that she didn't want to do and I enjoy doing.
Uh-huh.
So
So
we have it, it, so it's a great relationship. And you know what, if the people at the top are happy, it all flows.
so that's a really, really interesting point. I guess in the past you hadn't given up control.
I couldn't give up control because I had an office manager who wasn't there.
Yes.
And then I had office managers I didn't trust.
Hmm.
If you don't trust the people who are basically running your business,
Right.
then you're going to be on top of it. And it's not that, the way our model works is it's not that I get a salary. It's still in a different, the old, quote unquote, old system of payment. You got to be careful.
Right. We always talk about trust but verify, right? You don't want to
Exactly.
have blind trust,
Right.
but you want
Right.
to let your office manager lead and then, yeah.
Right. And sometimes you just get a sense of a person
Hmm.
and you're like, this person I know is going to be.
Yeah.
And she just was out on vacation for 10 days. She was on her honeymoon.
Hmm.
And
Oh, nice.
God, I missed her. I'm like, where is she? Why is she dealing with these problems? Because no matter how good or bad or, you know, uh, anything is, there's always, small fires to be put out.
Right. Right. So when we looked into the qualities that your current state practice has, we came up with kind of this secret sauce of
Right.
a successful practice. And it's really kind of what you described. It's the um, office manager with good leadership skills, as well as a supportive uh, position, right?
Right.
Working in alignment with the greater mission and not
Right.
against, right? And those leadership qualities, can you talk a little bit about, because I think leadership qualities um, are
Yeah.
a bit of a hot topic, right? What makes a good leader? How do you, is she, what does she bring to the table?
I think that we like to say we work well together. We communicate every day. We
Hmm.
talk every day. Um, so I know what's going on. She knows what's going on from different levels and there are some informations that we can't pass along to her, but whatever we can, so
Yeah.
she can uh, prep and prepare and know what's going on. Um, and from uh, for her, you may not think she knows what's going on, and I don't know how she knows. She has eyes and ears. It's like she's watching everything. Um, and she knows what's going on. And I'm like, what about this? And she goes, done, taken care of. Or, I'm like, oh, this person's doing great. No, no, they're missing this, they're missing this, they're missing this. So
Hmm.
she knows exactly what's going on. Um, and so as physician leaders, you have to let your managers manage.
Yeah.
Uh,
And you allow that of her, and she allows that of her people, right? One of the
it,
things that
she
came up
doesn't
is that,
micromanage.
yes, she is empowering her people, helping develop them, help grow them.
She
Um,
is, yeah, she gives instruction. She gives the home office protocols, and she's like, adapt it to us. What can you come up with? And she encourages um, our staff.
Yeah. I always like to distinguish the difference between um, delegating and dumping, right?
Oh,
Sometimes,
that's true. Yeah.
right? And it's similar to
And
that trust
even
but verify.
there's delegating, dumping, and then above delegating, it's like this needs to be done. You figure it out, and encouraging them. Hopefully, these good employees
Right.
will develop managerial skills and hopefully won't leave me, but they probably will if they're that good.
Right. It's so challenging when we feel like as leaders, and whether you're in a official title as a leader or if you're just a physician in the practice, you're always looked at as a leader.
Yes.
Um, and it's very hard to pause and take the time to teach someone to do something or let them do when you can do it just as easy, much faster and easier yourself. Sort of like with your children, right? Like, oh my God, let me just tie your shoe. It's so much faster and easier. But
Well, you had mentioned at the beginning, we changed to a new electronic health record. And, I spent 6 months helping Allied, you know, develop it. So I had some extra skills, which personally I think helped us and might have hindered us. But when people come up to me in this, because they know I know a little bit more, I just want to do it myself. And sometimes I have to because I have no time.
right, right. But if the person sits and tries to figure it out and you just guide them,
Right.
um,
Right. Well, and it's very interesting that one of my partners, like, he'll come to me for a question, and I'm like, wait, give me about 15 minutes. And by the time I get over there, he's already figured it out.
uh, I think, a little bit of a sidebar, but I think that that's one of the problems with our the children generation of kids these days. That every answer is at their fingertips. There's no thought process or trying to struggle or figure things out anymore.
Yes and no, I think, but they are so good. You give a 10-year-old a computer, they just go.
True.
Whereas people in our age group, we're afraid to make a mistake. Whereas they know they can just go backwards and and work their way around the computer.
Yes, that is very true. Different scenarios for
Yeah,
different people, right? So,
right.
because I was just talking to a friend the other day about her daughter, who is an adult daughter who, on a train or something, missed her train and was like calling her mother, like, what do I to figure it out?
We have this conversation a lot in the I've had ups and downs with my children, uh, and that they don't call me every day, and they are functioning productive members of society.
Yeah.
um, I think I won.
Yes. Wait, can we have a moment? I just want to take a moment to talk about your daughter, who, let's talk about how leadership and coming together, and during the peak of COVID, that was some stressful times trying to figure out what policies when we didn't know anything. We had the beautiful gift of you having a daughter who was, tell us.
My daughter is a virologist. She, at the time, she was a PhD student studying RNA respiratory viruses. So all the tests and all the information, she knew exactly what it was. And and it wasn't that I was asking her to do other things. This is what she did. And
Yeah.
she did a few webinars for us about vaccines. She was actually part of the Pfizer vaccine trial. That she was so she did all her research. She knew how safe it was, and yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, proud pop.
Yes, proud pop. And
But
she really became an integral member of our team, right? We would be
right,
sitting around discussing, okay, which test is there, which vaccine, and what does
right.
Rachel think?
Yeah, well, we spent most of pandemic going WWRD. What would Rachel do? In my office, in my family. But you know what? She loved. This is what she loves to do. People ask, "Are your children in medicine?" I always like to say, adjacent.
Yeah.
You know what? Everything she loved about science, I hate. And she didn't want to work with people. She heard me with people her whole life. She didn't want that.
Yeah, interesting. Now, do the doctors, how many doctors are in your practice? What's your setup?
We're 3 physicians and a nurse practitioner.
And is
And
everyone full time? Do you have,
everybody's full time. And the one thing about culture and people, my nurse practitioner was a nurse in my office.
oh, I love
And
that.
she was a nurse for many years, LPN. She did her RN. Then she went part-time with us and then worked at a extended care facility for children. Then she came back part-time when she went to get her nurse practitioner, and I did her peds mentoring for her nurse practitioner school. And then, you know what? It was a perfect fit. She knew us, she knew our patients, we knew her work ethic. We knew she would mold right into us. We had had a series of 1 or 2 years of pediatricians who would work a year or two and then leave. We knew she was going to be good. And the patient, she's been with us a year as a nurse practitioner. Patients love her.
So she developed homegrown. She developed in
Yeah,
your, yeah,
yeah. And it was like,
yeah.
now I
What
need
does
to get
full
up.
time look like at your office?
Full time is 4 days during the week and rotating Saturdays and rotating call. Our senior partner does the same call as our nurse practitioner.
Mhm. And what does call look like?
We still take all our own calls.
Wow.
Yeah. And we have a very different culture at Chester. We take our phone calls all day long.
What do you
We
mean?
an- we answer, patients can call us throughout the day and we will pick up the phone and speak to them constantly. And our patients just get used to it. They hear Dr. Levene pick up the call, Dr. Spielsinger pick up the call, uh, and in between patients. And sometimes, we have emergency codes. So when they announce a certain code, we know we need to pick it up right away. And our patients all know because most of the time they're on the other end of the phone.
So I can see why the patients would love that, but how did the doctors, how do you guys not get burned out with that?
You know what? We've been doing it for so long, it's just natural to us. And then after hours, we take the phone calls. And over the course of the years, the phone calls have become less. Well, I think because of urgent
Yeah,
care, people go online and stuff. Our phone system now gives them the option to go to Allied Telehealth in the evening. So there's some
right.
of that.
Yeah. I think that might get challenging if you do need to hire somebody fresh out of residency or somebody.
You, you know what? We've done that and people just ease right into it. It's just the way we work.
Yeah.
Uh, and every office manager comes in and goes, no, we're not going to continue this. And we're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Allied, everybody from Allied who's come and visited, they're like, no, no, how do you do that? It just works.
It just works. Look, and that just goes to show that there's no one right way.
And it's our selling point,
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah.
know, because you go to these big, quote unquote, big corporate, for us, it's WestMed or Optum or Pro Health.
Yeah.
The patients are like, I can't talk to anybody.
So impersonal.
Right.
Yeah. So I hear all the time from people that, so and so is toxic, but I can't get rid of her. We don't have enough people. Um, what would you say going through the culture shift that you went through? And look, I know this didn't happen overnight. This took a good 5 years for you to get from point A to point B.
And, you know, it's hard to get rid of a toxic person. And it's not necessarily finding the replacement. There's a lot of legalities around. And, even though most employees are at will, but you work with HR, and it's
Right.
very hard to get rid of some of our toxic employees. Thankfully, you know, um, some decided to move on. You sort of say, or you don't give them raises. There are certain ways to do that. But it's interesting that, like I said, having a good manager, my office manager will see things and start going, yeah, this person's going to get toxic, and sort of say, and we just lost a couple of months ago 2 MAs. One who we think was poisoning the rest of the staff, and thankfully my office manager worked with HR, and I left it all in their hands, and so now we're short staffed. But my good staff gets rewarded. They pitch in, they get fed, we do whatever we can to keep them happy.
Yeah, and
until we can find good people.
You ask people, they would rather work harder with a team that they trust,
right,
than have an extra body that's
right, but which may cause them more work.
Right.
I mean, there are certain things I would love to do. I would love to give them more bonuses, but I have to work within a system.
Right.
So we feed them.
Yes, everyone likes food.
Right. We, like we have donuts sent to the office. We have cookies sent to the office. We get them lunch. Those sorts of things.
Yeah. So did you always know that you wanted to be a pediatrician? Was this the straightforward path for you?
It's a yes and a no answer. Yes, I went to college. I actually have a degree in theoretical mathematics.
Ooh.
Yeah, don't ask me. I couldn't do any math anymore. But growing up, my dad was an engineer, and I loved architecture, and I still love architecture, and I love that. And my dad was like, just design hospitals. So
just design hospitals.
But that was my dad would say that.
Right.
But so architecture is my hobby, and I think when you get to a complicated patient, I sort of approach it as I'm looking at a blueprint. You got the whole picture, and then you got the little parts. What's not fitting? What's not working? So when you approach a patient, you're using everything that you've learned in medicine, but things that you've used in life. A lot of people will take art, and you can look at a picture and what's not working. So what's not working in this patient? Why is this problem here?
Yeah, that's what I love about primary care in general. It's that holistic approach.
And I know that you have a large practice too. It's amazing how much we see, and people think it's just going to be the same ear infections and strep throats and colds, but the amount
we barely see those anymore. They all go to urgent care.
But the amount of things that I only read about,
right, that
will walk into my office.
But the difference is, and I don't know about you, but leaving the hospital setting was a little bit scary. And there was a little bit of disrespect for the primary care doctors when you were in that setting.
Yes.
But it's actually it's such a different way of looking at it, right? It's very easy. I don't want to say it's easy to take care of childhood, cancer, but it's easy once the diagnosis is handed to you. But to take, 8,000 kids who have, a stomach ache and figure out which one, it's
which one is nothing and which one is something.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. And I do a lot of mentoring for nurse practitioners now. Just to add on top of everything else I do, that they go, how did you know? How did you know that you needed to do that test? How did you know that this kid? And it really is a matter of experience. Yeah. The more you see, the better you're going to know. And a lot, gut feeling is there. And you just learn what the kids say, what the parents say.
Yes. And
Yeah.
it's so great that you're doing that mentoring. I know my partner also is doing a lot of education with nurse
Yes.
practitioners and PAs, and one of our um, one of our NPs just picked up a kid vomiting with who had a brain tumor, right?
Wow.
And that's not in the middle of vomiting season, right? That's
It's
not
not easy.
nothing.
Yeah, that's hard to do. Yeah.
Gosh,
It's a horrible diagnosis and you feel horrible for the family, but that it was picked up early by somebody, and that nurse practitioner needs to be very proud of
yeah,
themselves. And
yes.
uh,
I actually love working, as a team and having that,
yeah, and
pull in an extra opinion.
yeah, well, that's the nice thing about having partners, and I really respect people who are solo practitioners because I love being able to turn to somebody and go, "What do you think?" Um,
Right.
but that's the hard, and it's really nice to go, did you see that? And for the big one for us is, can you see this rash?
Yes. Yes. And now with telehealth, rashes are great to get an extra opinion from.
But I find, and this might be and it could be just visual for me, I find rashes a little bit more difficult sometimes on telehealth.
You want to feel it, right?
I want to feel it. And I'm colorblind.
Really?
Yes, which is a big problem with the new EMR, by the way.
Yes.
And when you're looking at a camera, somebody's colors don't come through the same.
Yeah.
So that's sort of a harder thing for me.
Yeah.
We have, so.
All right. Listen, Eric, I know this is your day off, and
That's
so
fine.
and I know you wanted to get to the gym, so we should
which is my
probably wrap
stress,
this
which
up,
is my stress relief.
which is a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
So I guess since you were the one who wanted an episode about this, is there any last minute sort of advice or things that you would have for people listening?
My advice is, if you're in general pediatrics and you're in the same place for years, there are so many other things you can do within your organization. There are so few solo groups, but even that is within marketing. There's social media, there's webinars, there's so much more you can do and learn without officially going to classes and stuff. You've reinvented yourself multiple times, and that's what keeps it going. I think, not that I would get bored, but it's nice to be challenged.
Yeah, right. Well, thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you.
me today.
My pleasure.
All
And I
right,
will
and
see
as
you
usual,
soon.
a great big thank you to the listeners for choosing to spend your precious time with us. Hope to see you again on the next episode. Bye, Eric.
Bye.
For this episode of Reinventing the White Coat. If you enjoyed this conversation, subscribe now so you don't miss an episode. If you're interested in coaching or in being a guest on the podcast, you can reach out to me online at shaercoaching.com. Thanks for listening, and don't be afraid to live your best life.